The bitter winter wind howled across the barren plains of Nebraska as Bella Jameson clutched her threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders, her auburn hair whipping wildly about her face. It was 1873, and the promise of a new life had turned into a desperate fight for survival as she fled through the darkness, the sounds of pursuit growing ever closer behind her. 3 days earlier, she had discovered the truth about the man who'd offered her employment after her father's death. Walter Silas wasn't the respectable businessman he'd claimed to be. His establishment in Widow's Creek wasn't a legitimate hotel but a brothel, and Bella had narrowly escaped being forced into a life she couldn't bear to contemplate. Now, exhausted and freezing, she stumbled into a small clearing, her breath forming clouds in the frigid night air. The snap of a twig made her heart stutter with renewed fear. Bella whirled around, finding herself suddenly surrounded by 3 men with cold, merciless eyes that gleamed in the moonlight. "Well, well," the tallest one drawled, his smile revealing tobacco-stained teeth. "Looks like Mr. Silas's runaway has tired herself out." "He's mighty displeased with you, girl," another said, stepping closer. "Paid good money to bring you to Widow's Creek, and you repay him by running off." Bella backed away until she felt the rough bark of a tree against her spine. "I never agreed to what he wanted. He lied to me." The third man, a squat fellow with a jagged scar across his cheek, chuckled. "Don't matter what you agreed to. You're his property now." "I am no man's property," Bella declared, though her voice trembled with the cold and fear. The men closed in, their expressions promising cruelty, their intentions clear. Bella's fingers wrapped around a fallen branch, a pitiful weapon, but she wouldn't go without a fight. "Next step you take toward her is your last." The voice came from behind the men, deep and steady. They turned, revealing a tall figure silhouetted against the moonlight. The stranger stepped forward, and Bella saw him clearly, broad-shouldered and lean-hipped, with dark hair visible beneath a well-worn Stetson. His face was shadowed by several days' worth of beard, but his eyes were alert and focused. "This ain't your business, mister," the tallest man said, though his hand hovered uncertainly near his holster. "I'm making it my business," the stranger replied, his stance relaxed yet somehow threatening. The revolver at his hip remained holstered, but his hand rested near it with casual confidence. "You're outnumbered," Scarface pointed out. "Maybe so," the stranger agreed, "but I'm betting at least 2 of you won't live to celebrate that advantage." A dangerous smile crossed his face. "Question is, which 2 wants to die tonight?" The men exchanged glances, their earlier confidence evaporating. They'd come hunting a defenseless woman, not prepared to face a man who looked entirely capable of keeping his promise. "Mr. Silas won't forget this," the tallest one finally said, backing away. "Neither will I," the stranger promised. "Now ride out before I decide you're better off as fertilizer." With muttered curses, the 3 men retreated into the darkness. Only when the sound of their horses faded did the stranger turn his attention to Bella. "Are you hurt, madam?" Bella shook her head, still clutching her makeshift weapon. "No, but they'll be back. Walter Silas doesn't give up easily." "Then we'd best not be here when they return." He removed his hat, revealing more of his face, young but weathered, with eyes that seemed older than his years. "Tucker Zane, madam. Most folks call me Tuck." "Bella Jameson." She studied him warily. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." Tuck replaced his hat, adjusting it with a practiced motion. "Don't need to know someone to know when they're in trouble." He glanced in the direction the men had disappeared. "My camp's not far. You can warm up and we can figure what to do next." Bella hesitated, acutely aware that trading one danger for another wasn't wise, yet something in his steady gaze suggested trustworthiness. "I don't have much choice, do I?" she admitted. There's always a choice, Miss Jameson, but not all choices are good ones. He gestured toward a barely visible path. This way, if you're willing. Bella followed, her legs aching with exhaustion as they trekked through the underbrush. After 20 minutes of silent walking, the trees thinned, revealing a small camp nestled in a protected hollow. A low fire burned in a ring of stones, and a canvas lean-to provided shelter beside it. A dappled gray horse was picketed nearby, raising its head curiously as they approached. "It's not much," Tuck acknowledged, stirring the fire to life. "But it's warm and those men won't find it easily." Bella sank gratefully onto a fallen log near the fire, extending her numb fingers toward the flames. "Thank you, Mr. Zane. Just Tuck, please." He moved to his saddlebags and retrieved a battered tin cup and a packet wrapped in oilskin. "Coffee's not fresh, but it's warm." As he prepared the drink, Bella studied her rescuer. He moved with the easy grace of a man accustomed to living outdoors, his actions economical and precise. Though his clothes were worn, they were clean, and the firearms he carried showed signs of careful maintenance. "You're not an outlaw," she observed suddenly. Tuck glanced up, one eyebrow raised. "What makes you say that? Outlaws don't typically rescue women from other criminals. They're usually doing the hunting themselves." A ghost of a smile touched his lips as he handed her the steaming cup. "No, I'm not an outlaw, just a man trying to make his way home." Bella wrapped her fingers around the warm metal, grateful for its heat. "Where is home?" "Colorado territory. Got a small spread near the mountains." He settled on the opposite side of the fire. "What about you, Miss Jameson? What brings you out here alone with men hunting you?" Bella stared into the dancing flames, the bitter coffee warming her from inside. "My father died 6 months ago. Influenza. Our farm outside Council Bluffs couldn't support me alone, so I sold it to pay his debts." She took another sip. "I saw an advertisement from Mr. Silas seeking a housekeeper for his hotel in Widow's Creek. The pay seemed fair, and I needed work." Tuck nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "But the hotel wasn't what you expected." "It wasn't a hotel at all," Bella confirmed, anger flashing through her exhaustion. "It was a house of ill repute. He'd paid my stagecoach fare, then claimed I owed him a debt that could only be repaid through services." She straightened her shoulders. "I refused. He locked me in a room, but I escaped through the window 3 nights ago." "Brave," Tuck commented quietly. "Foolish, maybe, but brave." "I had little choice, what he wanted." She shuddered. "I couldn't." "No, you couldn't," Tuck agreed, his voice hardening. "Men like Silas prey on women with few options. I've seen it before." He added another stick to the fire. "Get some rest, Miss Jameson. I'll keep watch. Tomorrow we'll decide what comes next." Bella wanted to argue that she wasn't his responsibility, but exhaustion overcame her pride. He offered her his bedroll under the lean-to, and despite her intention to remain vigilant, she fell into a deep sleep almost instantly. She woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Morning light filtered through the trees, revealing their campsite in daylight. Tuck crouched by the fire, turning strips of meat in a small cast-iron pan. He'd already saddled his horse and packed most of his gear. "Good morning," he said, noticing her stir. "Thought you might sleep the day away." Bella sat up, embarrassed by how vulnerable she'd been. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to impose on your hospitality for so long." "No imposition. You needed the rest." He scooped bacon onto a tin plate and passed it to her along with more coffee. "Eat. We've got decisions to make." The simple food was the most delicious thing Bella had tasted in days. As she ate, Tuck explained his situation. "I'm headed to Colorado, as I said. My brother's holding our ranch, but he needs help before winter sets in proper." He studied her thoughtfully. "You've got 3 choices as I see it. I can take you back to the nearest town and you can find honest work there, though Sela's might still come looking. I can escort you somewhere else of your choosing if you've got somewhere to go, or you can come with me to Colorado." Bella nearly choked on her coffee. "Colorado, with you, but we barely know each other. As a passenger, not a bride," Tuck clarified, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "My brother's wife died 2 years back, left him with 2 young children. They need a woman's care, and he needs help running the house while we work the ranch." He shrugged. "It would be honest work, Miss Jameson. Hard but honest, and far from Silas and his men." Bella considered her options. She had no family to return to and precious little money. Finding work in a strange town with no references would be difficult, especially with Silas potentially searching for her. "Why would you make such an offer to a stranger?" she asked suspiciously. "Because I know what it's like to be alone with no good choices," Tuck replied simply. "And because my niece and nephew need someone gentle to care for them." He stood, dusting off his hands. "You don't need to decide now. We've got a 2-day ride to the nearest proper town. You can think on it." 2 hours later, they were traveling west, Bella riding behind Tuck on his sturdy gray gelding. She clung awkwardly to his waist, trying to maintain a proper distance despite the horse's gait forcing her against him with each stride. "Relax," Tuck advised over his shoulder. "Granite's sure-footed, but he'll feel your tension. Just move with him." Gradually, Bella found a rhythm, her body swaying in unconscious harmony with both horse and rider. The vast Nebraska landscape rolled past them, endless plains stretching to distant horizons, broken occasionally by rocky outcroppings or stands of trees. Despite her precarious situation, Bella found herself marveling at the wild beauty. They made camp that evening near a shallow creek. While Tuck tended the horse, Bella gathered firewood and started a small fire. They worked in comfortable silence, each anticipating the other's needs with surprising ease. As twilight deepened, they sat beside the fire, sharing a simple meal of beans and jerky. Tuck seemed content with the quiet, but Bella found herself curious about the taciturn man who had rescued her. "How long have you been away from your ranch?" she asked. Tuck considered the question, staring into the flames. "Near 8 months. My brother Daniel and I inherited the place from our father 5 years ago. It's good land, but we needed cash to improve it. I took work as a trail guide for wealthy Easterners wanting to hunt in the territories." "That sounds dangerous." A wry smile crossed his face. "Less dangerous than ranching some days. The hunting party I guided this summer was from Boston, bankers and businessmen playing at being frontiersmen." His expression darkened slightly. "One of them got drunk, wandered off. Mountain lion got him before we could find him." "That's terrible," Bella murmured. "It was. His companions blamed me, though I'd warned them repeatedly about wandering alone." Tuck poked at the fire with a stick. "They refused to pay the remainder of my fee, which meant I couldn't buy the breeding stock I'd promised Daniel. Been working odd jobs across 3 territories trying to earn enough to make it right." Bella studied him with new understanding. Here was a man with a strong sense of responsibility to his family, to his promises, and apparently to strangers in distress. "What about you?" Tuck asked. "Any family besides your father?" Bella shook her head. "My mother died when I was 12. No siblings. Father and I managed the farm together until he fell ill." She traced patterns in the dirt with a twig. "I taught at the local school for a while, but they couldn't keep paying me after harvest failed last year, when Father died." She shrugged. "There wasn't much to stay for. You can read and write then. Figures too?" "Yes, Father believed in education, even for a daughter." Tuck nodded thoughtfully. "That would be useful. The children need teaching, and Daniel's no hand with letters." The casual way he continued to include her in his future plans should have alarmed Bella, but instead, she found it strangely comforting. This man who owed her nothing was offering her a place, a purpose, something she hadn't had since her father's death. "I haven't agreed to go to Colorado," she reminded him. "No, you haven't," he acknowledged, "but the offer stands." They fell silent again, the crackling fire and distant cry of a coyote the only sounds in the vast darkness. Bella found herself studying Tuck's profile, noting the strong line of his jaw beneath his beard, the way his eyes reflected the firelight. He was handsome in a rugged way, she realized with a start, then quickly pushed the thought aside. "We should get some rest," Tuck said eventually. "Got another long day tomorrow." He insisted she take the bedroll again while he kept first watch, promising to wake her for her turn. But when Bella opened her eyes next, dawn was breaking and Tuck was already tending the fire, his back to her as he prepared coffee. "You didn't wake me," she accused, sitting up. He glanced over his shoulder. "Wasn't tired. That's not the point. I won't be a burden, Mr. Zane." "Tuck," he corrected automatically. "And you're not a burden, Miss Jameson. Just thought you needed the rest more than I did." "Bella," she countered. "If I'm to call you Tuck, then you must call me Bella." A small smile touched his lips. "Bella, then." He handed her a cup of coffee. "We should reach Clearwater by evening. It's small but has a proper hotel. You can have a real bath and bed while you decide your next move." They broke camp efficiently and continued westward. The day was milder than the previous one, the winter sun providing welcome warmth. As they rode, Tuck pointed out landmarks and wildlife, displaying an intimate knowledge of the land that spoke of years traversing the frontier. By mid-afternoon, however, the weather turned. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon and the temperature dropped rapidly. "Storm's coming," Tuck observed, scanning the sky with concern. "And a bad one from the look of it. We need to find shelter." "What about Clearwater?" Bella asked, tightening her shawl against the rising wind. "Too far. We'd be caught in the open." He surveyed the landscape, then pointed to a distant line of trees. "There's an old trapper's cabin near that stand of cottonwoods. Not much, but it's solid." They pushed Granite to a faster pace, the horse sensing the urgency. The first heavy drops of rain began to fall as they reached the trees, and thunder rumbled ominously overhead. Tuck guided them along an almost invisible path until a small log cabin appeared, nestled against a rocky outcropping. The cabin was primitive, but intact, a single room with a stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs, and a narrow bed frame covered with a dusty bearskin. Tuck quickly unsaddled Granite and settled him in a lean-to attached to the cabin's side, while Bella cleared debris from the fireplace and laid a fire with wood stacked beside it. By the time Tuck brought in his saddlebags, rain was hammering on the roof, and lightning split the sky outside the single small window. "Good timing," he remarked, shaking water from his hat. "This is a plains deluge if I ever saw one." The cabin grew cozy as the fire caught, dispelling the damp chill. Tuck produced jerky and hardtack from his supplies, along with a dented can of peaches, a luxury he'd apparently been saving. "Not exactly a feast," he apologized, dividing the fruit between them. "It's wonderful," Bella assured him, savoring the sweet syrup. "Better than anything I've had in days." They ate companionably, listening to the storm rage outside. Bella found herself increasingly comfortable in Tuck's presence. Despite their brief acquaintance, there was something reassuringly solid about him, a steadiness that made her feel secure for the first time since her father's death. "Tell me about your ranch," she said as they finished their simple meal. "And your family." Tuck's expression softened. "It's good land. Valley between 2 mountain ridges with a river running through it. Summer pastures high up, winter grazing below. We run about 60 head of cattle now, but could handle twice that with proper management. And the children? Bella prompted. Emma's 7, got her mother's golden hair and more spirit than is sometimes convenient. A fond smile crossed his face. Samuel's 5, quiet boy, watches everything, smart as a whip though he doesn't show it right away. He stared into the fire. They've had it hard since Sarah died. Daniel does his best, but it's difficult for a man alone, Bella finished for him. Yes. He looked up, meeting her eyes directly. They need a woman's touch, Bella, someone with patience and kindness. The intensity of his gaze made her heart flutter unexpectedly. I'm sure there are women in Colorado who could fill that role. None that Daniel would accept. He's changed since Sarah died, withdrawn. The ranch and the children are all he cares about now. And you, what do you care about? The question slipped out before Bella could consider its propriety. Tuck didn't answer immediately, his expression thoughtful. Family, the land, doing what's right when I can. He set his plate aside. I never wanted to be rich or famous, just to build something worthwhile and pass it on someday. The simple honesty of his ambition touched Bella deeply. Here was no grand dreamer chasing illusions, but a man of substance and character. I think that's admirable, she said softly. Their eyes met across the small space, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps of kindred spirits despite their different paths. The moment was broken by a particularly violent thunderclap that shook the cabin's walls. Bella jumped, and Tuck rose to check the door, ensuring it was securely latched. Storm's right overhead now, he observed. Going to be a long night. He glanced at the single bed, then at Bella, his expression carefully neutral. You take the bed, I'll make do by the fire. Bella nodded gratefully, though she felt guilty claiming the only proper sleeping place. As the evening wore on, they talked more about books they'd read, places they'd seen, the changing world beyond the frontier. Tuck revealed an unexpected breadth of knowledge, explaining that his mother had been a schoolteacher who insisted her sons receive proper education despite their remote location. She'd have liked you, he said, stoking the fire. Always said a sharp mind was more valuable than a strong back, though out here you need both. She sounds remarkable, Bella replied, stifling a yawn. She was. He nodded toward the bed. Get some rest. Storm or no, we should reach Clearwater tomorrow. Despite her exhaustion, Bella found sleep elusive. The storm's fury had diminished to a steady rainfall, creating a soothing rhythm on the cabin's roof. In the firelight, she could see Tuck's silhouette as he sat against the wall, his hat tilted over his eyes but his posture still alert. She realized with a sudden clarity that startled her that she felt safe with this man, safer than she had with anyone since her father died. The thought was both comforting and terrifying. Attachment was dangerous in her precarious situation, yet she couldn't deny the connection forming between them. Morning brought clearing skies and renewed purpose. They left the cabin tidier than they'd found it and resumed their journey toward Clearwater. By midday, the small settlement came into view, a cluster of buildings along a rutted main street, with a church steeple marking one end and a livery stable the other. Tuck guided Granite directly to the town's only hotel, a 2-story clapboard building with peeling paint but clean windows. He helped Bella dismount, his hands strong and steady at her waist, lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. I'll get us rooms and see about supplies, he said. Then I need to check the telegraph office. My brother was expecting me weeks ago. The hotel proprietress, Mrs. Lawson, was a round, cheerful widow who clucked sympathetically at Bella's disheveled appearance. You poor dear, traveling in such weather. I'll have a hot bath sent up immediately, and perhaps we can find you something fresh to wear. She eyed Bella's mud-spattered dress critically. "That's very kind, but I can't afford—" "Nonsense," Tuck interrupted, placing coins on the counter. "2 rooms, meals, bath, and whatever the lady requires." "Tuck, no," Bella protested. "You've done enough already. Consider it an advance on wages if you decide to come to Colorado," he said quietly. "Or simple Christian charity if you don't." Before she could argue further, Mrs. Lawson was ushering her upstairs, chattering about the scandalous behavior of the mayor's wife and the imminent arrival of a real piano for the church. The promised bath appeared promptly, along with a modest blue calico dress that the widow insisted wasn't being used by anyone. Soaking in the warm water, Bella contemplated her situation. Clearwater seemed a decent enough town. Perhaps she could find employment here teaching if the school needed help, or housekeeping for one of the better families. She could build a new life, independent and secure. Yet when she tried to imagine that future, her thoughts kept returning to Tuck's description of the mountain valley, the struggling ranch, the children needing care. And to Tuck himself, with his quiet strength and unexpected gentleness. Dressed in the borrowed gown, her hair washed and neatly braided, Bella felt almost like herself again as she descended to the hotel's small dining room. Tuck was already there, freshly shaven and wearing a clean shirt, his hat respectfully placed on the empty chair beside him. He stood as she approached, his eyes widening slightly. "You look—" he began, then cleared his throat. "You look well, Bella." "Thank you," she replied, taking the seat he held for her. "Amazing what soap and clean clothes can accomplish." They ordered a simple supper, and Tuck shared news from the telegraph office. "Daniel's managing, but only just. Early snowfall in the high country. He's worried about getting the cattle down from summer pasture before the pass is close." Concern etched lines around his eyes, and Bella found herself reaching across the table to touch his hand briefly. "You'll get there in time." "I hope so." He turned his hand over, capturing her fingers in a gentle grip before releasing them. "The stage leaves for Denver day after tomorrow. Takes a roundabout route, but it's safer than riding alone this time of year. And faster, I imagine, even with stops." Tuck nodded. "I've secured a passage." He hesitated, studying her face. "One passage for now. I need to know your decision, Bella." The moment of truth had arrived sooner than she'd expected. Bella took a steadying breath. "I'm grateful for the choice, truly I am, but I hardly know you or your family. Going to Colorado would be a leap of faith," he finished for her. "I understand your hesitation, it's sensible." He leaned forward slightly. "But sometimes sense isn't everything. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts." "And what do your instincts tell you about me, Tuck Zane?" Bella asked softly. "That I'm trustworthy enough to care for children I've never met, on the word of a man I've known 3 days. My instincts tell me you're brave, resourceful, and kind," he replied without hesitation. "That you'd rather sleep in the open than compromise your principles. That you can read a man's character accurately, or you wouldn't be sitting here with me now." His eyes held hers steadily. "But more than that, they tell me you're lost and looking for a place to belong, same as I was after my parents died." His perception struck uncomfortably close to the truth. Bella looked away, gathering her thoughts. "I need time to consider, of course." He sat back, his expression carefully neutral again. "Take tonight and tomorrow, but I'll need your answer before I buy the second ticket." They finished their meal in thoughtful silence, then Tuck excused himself to see about repairs to his saddle and other supplies. Bella retired to her room, small but clean, with a real bed and cotton sheets that seemed luxurious after days of rough travel. Despite her exhaustion, sleep remained elusive. She paced the narrow confines, weighing her limited options. Staying in Clearwater meant starting over yet again, with no guarantee of success or safety. Going to Colorado meant depending on Tuck's goodwill and his brother's acceptance, both unknown quantities. Yet something about Tuck Zane inspired confidence. His straightforward manner, his clear devotion to his family, his unassuming courage all spoke of a man who could be trusted. And the children he described tugged at her heart, reminding her of the students she'd taught and genuinely missed. Morning brought no clarity. Bella breakfasted alone, Mrs. Lawson explaining that Mr. Zane left at dawn to see about that horse of his. With time to fill, Bella explored the small town, gathering impressions and quietly inquiring about employment opportunities. Clearwater proved to be a typical frontier settlement, a few prosperous businesses, several struggling ones, and a community held together by necessity more than affection. The school already had a teacher, the merchants had family helping them, and the only other positions available were in the saloon, which Bella refused to consider after her experience with Silas. She was returning to the hotel when a familiar voice called her name. Turning, she saw a face she'd hoped never to see again: Joel Harker, one of the men who had cornered her in the forest. He was alone this time, but no less threatening as he strode toward her. "Well now, ain't this convenient?" he drawled, blocking her path. "Mr. Silas will be mighty pleased when I bring you back." Bella glanced around desperately, but the street was nearly empty, the few passers-by studiously avoiding the confrontation. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she stated firmly, though her heart raced. "This is a decent town. If you try to force me, force you. Now why would I need to do that when you're going to come quiet like?" His hand moved to his jacket, revealing the handle of a pistol. "Unless you want that cowboy friend of yours to have an unfortunate accident. Saw him over at the livery, all alone." Fear for Tuck's safety flooded through her. Leave him out of this. He has nothing to do with it. Made it his business, didn't he? Interfered with men doing their job. Harker's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Silas doesn't appreciate interference, but he might be merciful if you come along peaceful." Bella's mind raced, searching for options. She could scream, but would anyone help? She could run, but where? And if she did either, would Harker carry out his threat against Tuck? "Fine," she said finally, her voice tight. "I'll come, but I need to get my things from the hotel." "Nice try," Harker sneered. "We'll go together. And no tricks or your friend gets a bullet instead of a warning." With Harker's hand gripping her arm painfully, Bella had no choice but to accompany him into the hotel. Mrs. Lawson looked up as they entered, her welcoming smile fading at Bella's distressed expression. "Everything all right, dear?" she asked, eyes darting suspiciously to Harker. "Just fine, madam," Harker answered before Bella could speak. "Miss Jameson and I are old acquaintances. I'm escorting her back to Widow's Creek where she's expected." "I need my belongings," Bella managed to say, hoping the woman would sense something amiss. "Oh, I'll fetch them for you," Mrs. Lawson offered, but Harker's grip tightened on Bella's arm. "No need to trouble yourself. We'll get them." As he forced Bella toward the stairs, the hotel door opened again. Tuck stepped in, freezing at the tableau before him. His eyes moved from Bella's frightened face to Harker's threatening posture, understanding dawning immediately. "Let her go," he said quietly. Harker shifted, angling himself to keep Bella between them. "Stay back, Zane. This isn't your concern." "I'm making it my concern," Tuck replied, echoing his words from their first meeting. His hand rested near his holster, but he made no move to draw. "You're outnumbered," Harker warned, though he was visibly alone. "Am I?" Tuck's gaze flicked meaningfully to the window, where two men on horseback could be seen passing by the town marshal and his deputy on their regular patrol. Uncertainty flickered across Harker's face. Then his expression hardened and his free hand moved toward his concealed weapon. "Tuck, he'll shoot you," Bella cried, struggling against Harker's grip. In one fluid motion, Tuck drew his revolver and cocked it, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet lobby. "I said let her go." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Mrs. Lawson's voice rang out. "Marshall, Marshall Hayes, come quick," Harker cursed, shoving Bella roughly aside as he bolted for the back door. Tuck moved to follow, but Bella caught his arm. "Don't, please, he's not worth it." Tuck hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon as the marshal burst through the front door, hand on his own pistol. "What's all this then?" he demanded, surveying the scene. "Man was trying to abduct Miss Jameson," Mrs. Lawson explained indignantly. "Ran out the back just now." The marshal looked questioningly at Bella, who nodded confirmation. "He works for Walter Silas in Widow's Creek. They tried to force me into indecent work." Understanding crossed the marshal's weathered face. "Silas, eh? Not the first time I've heard complaints about his operation." He signaled to his deputy. "Check around back, see if you can spot him." While the deputy hurried off, the marshal took brief statements from everyone present. "You're welcome to file formal charges, Miss Jameson, though I warn you it might mean staying in Clearwater longer than you planned." Bella glanced at Tuck, whose expression remained carefully neutral. I need to consider my options, Marshal. Of course. Meanwhile, I'll send word to the county sheriff about Silas. Been meaning to look into that place anyway." He tipped his hat. "You folks stay alert. Men like that don't usually give up easily." After the lawman departed, Mrs. Lawson bustled off to put on a fresh pot of coffee for the nerves, leaving Bella and Tuck alone in the lobby. "Are you all right?" Tuck asked, studying her face with concern. "Yes, thanks to you. Again." Bella attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You seem to make a habit of rescuing me." "Wouldn't have to if you weren't so skilled at finding trouble," he replied, his own smile equally strained. After a moment's hesitation, he added, "This changes things. If Silas's men found you here, they'll look other places too. Staying in Clearwater might not be safe after all." Bella nodded slowly. "I was beginning to realize that myself, even before Harker appeared." She met his gaze directly. "I've made my decision, Tuck. If the offer still stands, I'd like to go to Colorado with you." Relief washed over his features, quickly masked by a more restrained nod. "The offer stands. I'll secure another ticket on tomorrow's stage." "And you're certain your brother won't object to bringing a stranger into his home?" "Daniel can be difficult since Sarah died, but he's a fair man. He needs help and you need a fresh start." Tuck's expression softened. "Besides, once he sees how good you are with the children, he'll wonder how we managed without you." The confidence in his voice warmed Bella in ways she wasn't ready to examine too closely. "I hope I can live up to your faith in me." "You already have," Tuck said simply. The stagecoach journey to Denver proved both arduous and enlightening. Packed with 6 passengers and a driver who seemed determined to hit every rut in the trail, the coach rattled westward through small settlements and long stretches of open country. Bella and Tuck shared the bench with a traveling salesman who spoke incessantly about his miraculous patent medicines, while across from them sat a minister and his wife bound for a new parish in Wyoming, and a taciturn miner returning to the Colorado goldfields. Despite the crowded conditions, Bella found herself enjoying the journey. The ever-changing landscape captivated her, rolling prairies giving way to dramatic buttes and mesas as they approached the front range of the Rockies. Equally fascinating were her fellow travelers, each carrying stories of frontier life with its hardships and unexpected joys. Throughout the journey, Tuck remained a steady, reassuring presence beside her. He spoke little in company, but seemed to anticipate her needs, offering his coat when the evening grew chill, securing the best accommodations possible at each stop, placing himself between her and any potential trouble. At their third night stopover, a small way station with barely enough room for all the passengers, Bella found a moment alone with Tuck on the rough porch as sunset painted the western sky in fiery hues. "It's beautiful," she remarked, gazing at the distant mountains. "I've never seen anything like it." "Wait until you see the ranch," Tuck replied, leaning against the rail beside her. "Valley turns gold at sunset with the river running through it like a silver ribbon." The pride in his voice was unmistakable. "You love it very much, don't you?" Bella observed. "It's part of me," he admitted. "When I'm away too long, I feel untethered, like a piece of myself is missing." "I felt that way about our farm in Iowa," Bella said softly. "Not the work that was endless and often thankless, but the land itself. The rhythm of the seasons, the sense of belonging to a particular piece of earth." Tuck nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Frontiers full of people searching for that feeling. Some never find it, and some find it where they least expect," Bella added, thinking of her own uncertain journey. Their eyes met in the fading light, and Bella felt a flutter of something new and fragile between them, a connection deeper than circumstance or convenience. For a breathless moment, she thought Tuck might reach for her, but he merely smiled and turned back to the sunset. "Should reach Denver day after tomorrow," he said. "Then another 2 days ride to the ranch, weather permitting." "What if it doesn't permit?" Bella asked, practical concerns displacing the momentary flutter. "Then we wait. Mountains don't forgive poor judgment this time of year." His words proved prophetic when they arrived in Denver to find the city gripped by an early winter storm. Heavy snow blanketed the streets, and reports from the mountain passes were dire. "Won't be moving west for at least 3 days," the station master informed them as they disembarked from the stage. "Maybe longer if this keeps up." Tuck's frustration was evident, though he kept his voice even. "Any chance of getting a telegram through to Elk Valley?" "Lines were down this morning," the man replied with a shrug. "Might be working now, might not. You can try the office down the street." The telegraph lines proved to be functioning, if unreliably. Tuck sent a brief message to his brother explaining the delay and confirming that he was bringing help for the household. "Didn't mention you specifically," he explained as they trudged through snowy streets to a modest hotel. "Daniel might have notions about a single woman traveling with me, even under these circumstances." "Perhaps he'd be right to," Bella replied, suddenly conscious of how their arrangement might appear to others. "People will talk." "Let them," Tuck said firmly. "We know the truth of it." The Denver hotel was considerably more comfortable than their previous accommodations, though Tuck insisted on rooms with an adjoining door for safety. They settled into an unexpected period of waiting, using the time to gather supplies for the final leg of their journey. Denver in 1873 was a city caught between its rough mining camp origins and its aspirations toward metropolitan refinement. Muddy streets lined with false-fronted wooden buildings gave way to impressive brick and stone structures in the business district. Opera houses and gambling dens operated within blocks of each other, while ladies in fashionable gowns shared sidewalks with miners in muddy boots. For Bella, whose experience had been limited to small farming communities and frontier settlements, the city was both intimidating and exhilarating. With Tuck as her guide, she explored shops and markets, securing practical items for life at the ranch: sturdy boots, warm clothing, basic medical supplies. On their third afternoon in Denver, Tuck suggested they visit a photography studio. "Been thinking the children might like to see who's coming," he explained. "And Daniel too. Might ease the introduction if they've seen your face beforehand. Bella agreed, though she felt oddly nervous as the photographer positioned her in front of a painted backdrop of classical columns. "Smile naturally," he instructed from beneath his black cloth. "Is this really necessary?" she whispered to Tuck, who stood just behind the photographer. "Trust me," he replied with an encouraging nod. The resulting image, developed and mounted within hours, showed a composed young woman with intelligent eyes and a tentative smile, a far cry from the bedraggled fugitive Tuck had rescued less than 2 weeks earlier. "You look." Tuck studied the photograph, searching for the right word. "Trustworthy, kind, someone the children will take to immediately." "I hope so," Bella said, examining her own image critically. "Children have excellent instincts about people. They can't be fooled by appearances." "No, they can't," Tuck agreed, carefully placing the photograph in an inside pocket. "Which is why they'll love you." The simple confidence in his statement touched Bella deeply. Throughout their journey, Tuck had shown unwavering faith in her abilities, a faith she didn't always share, but found herself increasingly wanting to deserve. As the days passed, Bella became aware of subtle changes in their relationship. Tuck's protectiveness remained, but there was something else developing alongside it, a deepening connection that manifested in small ways. Lingering glances, the brush of his hand against hers when passing a cup of coffee, conversations that stretched late into the evening. She told herself it was merely the intimacy of shared journey and purpose, yet in quiet moments, she admitted the truth. She was developing feelings for Tucker Zane that went beyond gratitude or friendship. The realization was terrifying. She was dependent on him, vulnerable in ways that made romantic attachment dangerous. And he had given no clear indication that he felt anything beyond responsibility toward her. On their 5th morning in Denver, the station master finally delivered good news. The passes were clearing, and stage service to the mountain communities would resume the following day. "We'll take the stage as far as Elk Creek," Tuck explained as they packed their purchases. "From there, we can hire horses for the last stretch to the ranch." Anticipation and anxiety warred within Bella as they prepared for the final leg of their journey. What would Daniel think of her? Would the children accept her? And what of her confused feelings for Tuck? The stage departed Denver at dawn, climbing steadily into the foothills of the Rockies. Unlike their previous journey, this coach carried only 3 passengers: Bella, Tuck, and a grizzled mining engineer bound for a silver operation near Elk Creek. The reduced company allowed for more comfort, though the increasingly rough roads made conversation difficult. By midday, they had entered a landscape transformed by winter's touch. Snow draped the pine forests in pristine white, while frozen creeks wound like silver ribbons through narrow valleys. The beauty was breathtaking, but Bella could also sense the danger in this unforgiving terrain. "It's magnificent," she breathed, gazing out the window as they rounded a curve revealing a panoramic view of snow-covered peaks against a brilliant blue sky. "And deadly if you don't respect it," Tuck added, though his eyes reflected her wonder. "Winter up here isn't like winter on the plains. It's deeper, longer, more isolated." "I'm not afraid of isolation," Bella said, meeting his gaze steadily, "or hard work. I know you're not." His gloved hand covered hers briefly. "That's why I brought you." The moment was interrupted as the stagecoach lurched to a sudden stop, sending them sliding forward on the leather seat. "What the devil?" the mining engineer muttered, peering out his window. Tuck tensed, his hand moving instinctively to his holster. "Stay inside," he instructed Bella, then called to the driver. "What's the trouble, Sam?" "Fallen tree across the road," came the reply. "Looks deliberate." Before Tuck could respond, A shot rang out, splintering the wood beside the driver's seat. "Ambush!" Sam shouted, diving for cover. 3 men emerged from the trees, rifles aimed at the stage. Tuck cursed under his breath, recognizing the leader instantly. Harker, the man from Clearwater, now joined by his companions from their first encounter in the woods. "Told you Silas doesn't forget," Harker called. "Send out the girl, Zane, and we'll let you and the others ride on." "Not happening," Tuck replied calmly, though Bella could see the tension in his jaw. "You're a long way from Widow's Creek, Harker. This isn't your territory. Made it our territory when you took what belongs to Mr. Silas." Another shot struck the coach, deliberate warning rather than attempt to kill. "Don't be stupid, Zane. 3 against 1 are poor odds." "2," the mining engineer corrected, producing a Colt revolver from his coat. "I don't cotton to road agents, whatever their excuse." Bella's heart pounded as she assessed their situation. The stage offered some protection, but they were effectively pinned down. Even with the engineer's unexpected assistance, Tuck would be outgunned and exposed if he tried to fight back. "I should go out there," she whispered urgently. "Before someone gets killed." Tuck's expression hardened. "Not a chance. Silas doesn't want you working for him anymore, Bella. He wants revenge for being defied. You wouldn't survive the journey back, but you could die here because of me." "Nobody's dying today," Tuck assured her with a confidence she wished she could share. To the engineer, he added, "When I move, can you provide covering fire toward the large pine on the left?" The man nodded grimly. "Just say when." "What are you planning?" Bella asked, fear evident in her voice. "Getting us out of this." Tuck's eyes held hers for a brief moment. "Trust me." Before she could respond, he was moving, slipping out the door on the side away from their attackers. The engineer immediately began firing toward the pine, forcing Harker and one companion to dive for cover. From her position, Bella could see Tuck working his way around the stage, using the vehicle for cover as he maneuvered to flank their attackers. The plan might have worked if the third man hadn't spotted the movement and raised his rifle. "Tuck, behind you!" Bella screamed. Tuck spun and fired in one fluid motion. The man crumpled, his shot going wild. But the warning had alerted Harker, who emerged from cover with his pistol trained on Tuck's exposed position. Without conscious thought, Bella grabbed the engineer's spare revolver from the seat beside him and threw open the stage door. Her first shot went wide, but it was enough to distract Harker momentarily. In that split second of confusion, Tuck dove for better cover while the engineer's steady fire kept the remaining attackers pinned down. Tuck worked his way toward a fallen log, each movement bringing him closer to Harker's position. The standoff continued for several tense minutes, an exchange of gunfire with neither side able to gain advantage. Then Bella noticed the stagecoach driver, Sam, creeping along the edge of the clearing, a shotgun in his hands. He had circled behind Harker's companion and now stood with the weapon leveled at the man's back. "Drop it," Sam ordered, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Now." The sudden reversal of fortune was evident in Harker's panicked expression. His companion slowly lowered his rifle, raising his hands in surrender. Harker, realizing he was now alone, made a desperate break for the trees. Tuck's shot caught him in the leg, sending him sprawling into the snow with a howl of pain. Within minutes, both men were disarmed and secured with leather straps from the stagecoach harness. "You all right?" Tuck asked, returning to the stage where Bella stood trembling, the revolver still clutched in her hand. She nodded mutely, allowing him to gently take the weapon. The enormity of what had just happened, what might have happened, washed over her in a wave of delayed fear. "You saved my life," Tuck said quietly, his eyes searching her face. "That was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever seen." "I couldn't let him shoot you," Bella replied, her voice steadier than she expected. Not when I could do something about it. Something shifted in Tuck's expression: surprise, admiration, and something deeper that made her breath catch. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the connection between them palpable in the frozen air. The spell was broken by the mining engineer's practical voice. What do we do with these two? Can't exactly bring them along. After brief discussion, they decided to secure the prisoners in the stagecoach with Sam keeping watch while Tuck, Bella, and the engineer worked to clear the fallen tree from the road. With the path finally clear, they debated what to do with Harker and his companion. Nearest law is back in Silverton, 2 days in the wrong direction, Sam pointed out. Or forward to Elk Creek, but that's no proper jail. My brother's the closest thing to law in Elk Valley, Tuck said after consideration. We'll take them there, decide what to do after. The journey resumed with their unwilling passengers securely bound and under the engineer's watchful eye. The mood in the coach was tense, but determined, as they continued climbing into increasingly rugged terrain. By nightfall, they reached Elk Creek, little more than a trading post, a stable, and a handful of cabins clustered around a swift mountain stream. Here, Sam would wait for the return stage while the others pushed on to Elk Valley. Telegraph still works intermittently, the trading post owner informed them, but no messages have come through for 3 days now. Tuck frowned at this news. We need horses for tomorrow, 4 of them. 4? Bella questioned quietly. Can't leave our friends here, Tuck explained, nodding toward the prisoners. No secure place to hold them. We'll bring them to Daniel. They spent an uneasy night in the trading post's cramped loft, taking turns standing guard over Harker and his sullen companion. By dawn, 4 horses were saddled and waiting, 2 for riding, 2 for the bound prisoners. It's about 6 hours to the ranch in good conditions, Tuck told Bella as he helped her mount a steady bay mare. Longer with these 2 slowing us down. You comfortable riding that distance? I'll manage, she assured him, though her legs already protested the previous day's journey. The trail to Elk Valley proved even more challenging than Tuck had suggested, a narrow path that wound through dense forest before climbing steeply into a high mountain pass. Snow drifted deeply in places, forcing them to dismount and lead the horses through treacherous sections. Despite the difficulty, Bella found herself entranced by the wild beauty surrounding them. Sunlight sparkled on pristine snowfields, while massive pines stood like sentinels against the brilliant sky. The air was sharper, clearer than any she had ever breathed, filling her lungs with exhilarating cold. Almost there, Tuck announced as they crested the pass around midday. Valleys just beyond that next ridge. Anticipation and anxiety mingled as they picked their way down the far side of the mountain. What awaited her at journey's end? Would she find the belonging she secretly hoped for, or merely another temporary refuge? The trail eventually widened, descending into a sheltered valley that opened before them like a hidden world. A river, partially frozen near its edges, curved through meadows now covered in snow. Several buildings clustered near its bank: a large 2-story cabin, a barn, and various outbuildings with smoke rising steadily from the main house's stone chimney. Welcome to Elk Valley Ranch, Tuck said, genuine pride warming his voice. Home. As they approached, a figure emerged from the barn, a man similar to Tuck in height and build, though somewhat heavier. Even from a distance, Bella could see the wariness in his stance as he watched their approach. That's Daniel, Tuck explained quietly, and it appears he's not expecting us. When they drew closer, Daniel Zane's expression transformed from suspicion to surprised recognition. Tuck, what in blazes? His eyes moved from his brother to Bella, then to the bound men. You bring trouble with you, I see. Not intentionally, Tuck replied, dismounting with fluid grace. Daniel, this is Miss Bella Jameson. Bella, my brother Daniel. Daniel's gaze assessed her thoroughly, his expression guarded. Miss Jameson. He nodded curtly before returning his attention to Tuck. Your telegram mentioned help, not a woman. Miss Jameson is the help, Tuck explained patiently. She's a teacher by training, good with children and household matters. We discussed this, Tuck. I don't want strangers in the house. The tension between the brothers was palpable as Bella carefully dismounted. Her legs trembled from the long ride, but she forced herself to stand straight as she addressed Daniel directly. Mr. Zane, I understand your concern. I assure you I'm here only to assist with your children and home, nothing more. She met his suspicious gaze steadily. If after a reasonable trial you find my presence unwelcome, I'll leave without argument. Daniel seemed taken aback by her directness. After a moment's consideration, he gave a grudging nod. 2 weeks, then we'll see. Before further discussion could occur, the cabin door flew open and 2 small figures burst out, racing toward Tuck with cries of delight. Uncle Tuck! Uncle Tuck! Tuck dropped to one knee, gathering both children into a fierce embrace. Emma, Samuel, look how you've grown. Bella watched the reunion with a lump in her throat. The children clung to Tuck as if afraid he might disappear again, their small faces alight with joy. Emma was indeed golden-haired as Tuck had described, with a spark of mischief in her blue eyes, while Samuel was more reserved, studying everything with solemn intensity. Eventually, Emma noticed Bella standing nearby. Who's that lady, Uncle Tuck? Is she your wife? Tuck coughed, color rising in his cheeks. No, Emma, this is Miss Jameson. She's come to help look after you and the house. Emma's expression clouded. Like Mama did, a painful silence fell over the group. Daniel turned away abruptly, moving to secure the horses, while Tuck struggled to find the right words. No one can replace your Mama, Bella said gently, kneeling to the child's level. But I'd like to help your father and uncle make your home comfortable again, if you'll let me. Emma considered this with surprising maturity for a 7-year-old. Can you bake cookies? Mama made the best cookies. I can, and perhaps you could help me. I'd love to learn your Mama's special recipe. This suggestion seemed to satisfy the girl, who nodded seriously before turning her attention to the bound men still seated on horseback. Who are the tied-up men? Are they bad? They're misguided, Tuck replied diplomatically. Your father and I need to decide what to do with them. To Daniel, he added, is the old line shack still secure? We could hold them there while we figure this out. Daniel nodded tersely. Samuel, take your sister inside. It's too cold to be out without proper coats. As the children reluctantly obeyed, he turned to Bella. House is unlocked. Make yourself useful if you want to stay. With that less than warm welcome, Daniel and Tuck led the prisoners and horses toward a small structure visible at the edge of the clearing, leaving Bella alone before the imposing log house that was to be her new home. Taking a deep breath, she gathered her courage and her single bag of possessions and approached the cabin. The interior was dimly lit, but surprisingly spacious, a large main room with a massive stone fireplace, a kitchen area with a cast iron stove, and doors leading to what she presumed were bedrooms. The furnishings were sturdy and practical, though signs of neglect were evident in the layer of dust on surfaces and the general disarray of belongings. Emma and Samuel watched from near the fireplace as Bella surveyed the room, their expressions curious but wary. Your home is beautiful, Bella said sincerely, setting her bag aside. Would you like to show me around while your father and uncle are busy? Samuel remained silent, but Emma nodded cautiously. The kitchen's over there. It's dirty 'cause Papa doesn't have time to clean much. And upstairs are the bedrooms. Papa says you can have the small one at the end of the hall. The tour revealed both the cabin's charm and its current state of neglect. What had clearly once been a warm, welcoming home now felt hollow, as if the heart had gone out of it with Sarah's death. Children's toys lay abandoned in corners. Dirty dishes were stacked haphazardly by the dry sink, and laundry waited in overflowing baskets. "When did you last have a hot meal?" Bella asked gently, noting the cold hearth and unused stove. "Papa made beans yesterday," Samuel offered, speaking for the first time. His voice was soft but clear. "And we had jerky for breakfast." "I see," Bella replied, restraining her dismay. "Well then, perhaps we should start there. Would you like to help me prepare something for when your father and uncle return?" To her relief, both children agreed eagerly. Under her guidance, they began simple tasks, Samuel filling the water bucket from the pump, Emma showing Bella where staples were stored. Within an hour, the kitchen stove radiated welcome heat, and the aroma of stew filled the cabin. They were setting the rough-hewn table when Tuck and Daniel returned, bringing with them the sharp scent of winter air and underlying tension. "Prisoners are secure," Tuck reported, removing his hat and coat. "I'll ride to the settlement tomorrow, see if the telegraph's working. County sheriff might send someone if the weather holds." Daniel merely nodded, his attention caught by the transformed kitchen and the steaming pot on the stove. "You've been busy," he observed to Bella, his tone difficult to read. "The children helped," she replied simply. "There's plenty for everyone if you're hungry." The meal that followed was awkward but not entirely uncomfortable. Tuck maintained easy conversation with the children, drawing out stories of their activities during his absence. Daniel ate silently, his expression thoughtful as he watched Bella interact with Emma and Samuel. After the meal, when the children had been sent to prepare for bed, Daniel finally addressed Bella directly. "My brother says you're running from trouble." Bella glanced at Tuck, who shrugged apologetically. "I had to explain the situation with Harker." "Yes," Bella confirmed, meeting Daniel's gaze. "A man named Walter Silas attempted to force me into immoral work. When I refused, he sent men to bring me back, and my brother involved himself in your troubles." "He saved my life," Bella corrected firmly. "Those men would have taken me by force or killed me had Tuck not intervened." Daniel studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "2 weeks," he finally repeated. "We'll see how it goes." Without further comment, he left to check on the children. "He'll come around," Tuck assured her when they were alone. "Daniel's not an easy man at the best of times, since Sarah died." "He's protecting his family," Bella said softly. "I understand that. You're part of that family now if you want to be." Tuck's gaze held hers steadily. "I meant what I said about belonging here." The simple declaration touched something deep within Bella, a longing for permanence, for connection that had haunted her since her father's death. "Thank you," she whispered, emotion making further words impossible. That night, lying in the small bedroom that was now hers, Bella contemplated the strange twists of fate that had brought her to this remote mountain valley. 3 weeks ago, she had been fleeing for her life, with no destination and little hope. Now she had shelter, purpose, and something tentatively forming that might become a home. And she had Tuck, a man whose steady presence had become increasingly important to her, though she dared not examine those feelings too closely. Sleep came eventually, deep and dreamless in the profound silence of the mountains. The days that followed established a rhythm of work and cautious adjustment. Bella rose early each morning to kindle fires and prepare breakfast before the others woke. The children gradually warmed to her presence, especially after she introduced reading hours by the fire in the evenings, and began teaching them simple lessons at the kitchen table. Daniel remained reserved, but not openly hostile. He observed Bella's efforts to restore order to the neglected household with guarded approval, and occasionally offered gruff thanks for a well-prepared meal or a mended garment. Tuck divided his time between ranch work, checking on their unwilling guests at the line shack, and making trips to the settlement to check the telegraph. On his fourth such journey, he returned with news. "Telegraph finally went through," he announced over dinner. "Sheriff's sending deputies, should arrive within the week if weather holds." "Good," Daniel grunted. "Sooner those two are gone, the better." "There's more," Tuck continued, his expression serious. "Got word that Walter Silas was arrested last week. Seems our complaints weren't the only ones." County Sheriff finally raided his establishment. Bella's hand trembled slightly as she set down her fork. "Arrested? You're certain?" "That's what the telegram said. Charges of kidnapping, coercion, and operating an illegal establishment." Tuck's eyes met hers across the table. "You're safe, Bella. Truly safe now." The implications washed over her in a wave of dizzying relief. The threat that had haunted her for weeks was gone. She was free to stay or go as she chose without fear of pursuit. That's wonderful news," she managed, aware of the children's curious gazes and Daniel's thoughtful one. Later that evening, when the children were asleep and Daniel had retired to his room, Bella found Tuck on the porch, smoking a rare cigarette as he gazed at stars scattered like diamonds across the velvet sky. "I wanted to thank you," she said softly, drawing her shawl tighter against the cold. "Not just for telling me about Silas, but for everything. I wouldn't be alive without your help." Tuck extinguished the cigarette carefully. "You'd have found a way. You're stronger than you know, Bella Jameson." "Perhaps, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out alone." She hesitated, then asked the question that had been haunting her since dinner. "Now that Silas is no longer a threat, what happens next?" "That depends on you," Tuck replied, turning to face her. "Your 2 weeks are almost up, but I think it's clear the children have taken to you." "Even Daniel seems less prickly these days. He's hurting," Bella observed. "The loss is still raw for him." "Yes, Sarah was. She was the heart of this place. When she died, something in Daniel died too." Tuck's gaze returned to the stars. "But I've seen glimpses of the old Daniel since you arrived. The house feels like a home again." Bella absorbed this, wondering if Tuck realized he was offering more than just employment with his words. "I'd like to stay," she said finally. "If Daniel agrees, he will." Tuck's confidence was absolute. After a moment's hesitation, he added, "I'm glad, Bella. Very glad." The simple statement held undercurrents that made her heart beat faster. They stood in companionable silence for several minutes, watching their breath form clouds in the cold air. "I should check on the prisoners," Tuck said eventually. "Make sure they have enough firewood for the night." "Even after what they tried to do to us?" Bella asked, surprised by his consideration. "Especially then. A man shows his true character in how he treats those in his power." He adjusted his hat. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's likely to be busy with the children's lessons." Bella watched him disappear into the darkness, her thoughts confused but her heart increasingly certain about one thing. Her feelings for Tucker Zane went far beyond gratitude. The deputies arrived 3 days later, too. Weather-beaten men who viewed the remote ranch with barely concealed dismay. They took charge of Harker and his companion with businesslike efficiency, accepting the written statements Tuck had prepared and promising to deliver the prisoners to the county seat for trial. "Won't be seeing them again," the older deputy assured Bella. "Between your testimony and what they found at Silas's place, they'll be occupied for years to come." As the lawmen departed with their prisoners, Bella felt a chapter closing in her life. The danger that had defined her recent existence was truly gone, leaving her free to consider what came next. That evening at supper, Daniel cleared his throat awkwardly after the children had been excused. "Miss Jameson, your 2 weeks are up tomorrow." Bella set down her cup carefully, aware of Tuck's sudden attention. "Yes, Mr. Zane, they are. The children. They've taken a shine to you." Daniel's discomfort with emotional matters was evident in his stiff posture. "And the house hasn't been this orderly since." He cleared his throat again. "What I mean to say is, if you're amenable, we'd like you to stay on. Permanently, or at least until spring thaw when traveling would be easier." Relief flooded through Bella. "I'd be happy to stay, Mr. Zane, very happy." "Good, that's good." Daniel nodded awkwardly, then stood. "I'll check on the stock before turning in." After he left, Bella turned to find Tuck watching her, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "See? Told you he'd come around." "You did," she agreed, returning his smile, though "come around" might be overstating his enthusiasm. For Daniel, that was practically gushing. Tuck chuckled. "Trust me, he wouldn't have asked if he didn't want you to stay." The weeks that followed brought increasing comfort and integration, as winter settled fully over Elk Valley. Heavy snows isolated the ranch from the outside world, creating a cocoon of shared existence within the cabin's warm walls. Lessons for the children expanded to include practical skills as well as book learning. Emma proved adept at sewing and cooking, while Samuel revealed unexpected talent for mathematics. Daniel gradually unbent enough to join evening activities, listening to Bella read aloud or participating in simple games with the children. Occasionally, he even shared stories of his early days in the valley with Sarah, though such reminiscences usually ended with him retreating to the solitude of his room. Throughout these domestic scenes, Bella was acutely aware of Tuck's presence, his quiet strength, his gentle way with the children, his occasional glances that seemed to hold meaning beyond casual observation. She found herself anticipating his return from outdoor chores, cherishing the evenings when their hands might briefly touch while passing dishes or arranging the children's school books. Yet neither spoke of the growing connection between them. Bella told herself it was respect for her position in the household. A single woman dependent on family goodwill could not afford romantic entanglements without clear intentions. And Tuck, for all his kindness, had never explicitly expressed feelings beyond friendship and concern for her welfare. Christmas approached, bringing excited preparations from the children and a softening in the household atmosphere. Bella organized secret craft projects, helping Emma and Samuel create simple gifts for their father and uncle. A small pine tree was brought inside and decorated with paper chains, dried berries, and precious ornaments carefully stored since Sarah's time. On Christmas Eve, after the children had finally been persuaded to sleep despite their excitement, the three adults sat before the fire, sharing the rare bottle of whiskey Daniel had produced from some hidden reserve. "Sarah always loved Christmas," Daniel said unexpectedly, his voice roughened by emotion and alcohol. "Said it was when the world remembered how to hope again." "She was right," Bella replied softly. "There's something about new beginnings in this season." Daniel studied her for a long moment. "You're not what I expected, Miss Jameson. When Tuck first brought you here, I thought." He shook his head. "Well, it doesn't matter what I thought. You've been good for the children, good for this house." The admission clearly cost him effort, making it all the more meaningful. "Thank you, Mr. Zane. Your family has been good for me as well." "Daniel," he corrected, finishing his drink. "About time you called me Daniel, I reckon." With that surprising concession, he bid them good night, leaving Bella and Tuck alone before the dying fire. That's high praise from my brother, Tuck observed, shifting to add another log to the flames. He doesn't give it lightly. I know. Bella watched the firelight play across Tuck's features, highlighting the strength of his jaw, the thoughtfulness in his eyes. I never expected to find this. A home, a family of sorts. Is that how you see us? As family, something in his tone made her look up sharply. The children, certainly, and Daniel is becoming. Not exactly a friend, but someone I respect and care for in my way. And me? Tuck asked quietly. How do you see me, Bella? The directness of the question took her breath away. She had imagined this conversation countless times but found herself unprepared now that it was happening. You saved my life, she began carefully. You've been my protector, my guide in this new world, my friend. She hesitated, then added with deliberate courage, but you're not like family to me, Tuck, not like a brother or uncle. His eyes darkened as he held her gaze across the small space between them. What am I like then? You know, she whispered, her heart pounding. I think I do, he acknowledged, setting his glass aside. But I need to hear you say it, because if I'm wrong, I have no right to do what I've been wanting to do since Clearwater. Bella gathered her courage, knowing that once spoken, these words could never be taken back. You're the man I've come to care for, deeply. More than I should, perhaps, given my position here. Tuck moved then, closing the distance between them to kneel before her chair, taking her hands in his. Your position is whatever you want it to be. You're not a servant here, Bella. You never were. Then what am I? She asked, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. The woman I love, he said simply. If you'll have me. Joy surged through Bella like a physical force. You love me. I think I started loving you that first night by the campfire, when you were half-starved and exhausted, but still held your head high. His thumbs traced gentle circles on the backs of her hands. I tried not to. Told myself it was wrong to have such feelings for someone in your vulnerable position. But every day, watching you with the children, seeing your strength and kindness. He shook his head. I couldn't help it. I love you too, Bella confessed, tears gathering in her eyes. I've been afraid to admit it, even to myself. It seemed too much to hope for after everything that's happened. Hope is exactly what you brought back to this valley, Tuck said softly. His hand rose to cup her cheek. May I kiss you, Bella Jameson? Her answer was to lean forward, meeting his lips with her own. The kiss was gentle at first, a confirmation of feelings long unspoken, then deepened with the release of months of restrained emotion. Tuck's arms encircled her, drawing her closer until she was nestled against his chest, the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her ear. I never want to let you go, he murmured into her hair. Then don't, she replied simply. They remained by the fire, talking in hushed voices about possibilities and plans, about feelings that had grown in silence and hopes for the future. It was well past midnight when they reluctantly parted, each to their separate rooms, though with new understanding between them. Christmas Day dawned clear and brilliantly cold. The children's excitement filled the cabin with joyful noise as they discovered the simple gifts Bella had helped prepare: knitted scarves, carved wooden toys, books ordered from a catalog months earlier. Daniel's gift to Bella was unexpectedly thoughtful, a fine woolen shawl in deep blue that he gruffly explained had been ordered when the last supply wagon came through. Tuck presented her with a small wooden box he had carved himself, inlaid with a delicate pattern of mountains and stars. It's beautiful, Bella breathed, tracing the intricate design. Open it, Tuck urged. Inside, nestled on a scrap of velvet, lay a simple gold ring. Bella's eyes widened as she looked from the ring to Tuck's face. It was my mother's, he explained quietly. Pa gave it to me before he died, said I should have it when the time was right. He took a deep breath. I think that time is now, if you agree. Awareness dawned on Daniel's face as he observed the exchange. With surprising tact, he ushered the puzzled children toward the kitchen. "Let's see about breakfast, shall we? Give your uncle a moment." When they were alone, Tuck took Bella's hands in his. "I'm not one for fancy speeches, but I know what I want, what I need." His eyes held her steadily. "I love you, Bella Jameson. Will you be my wife?" Tears of happiness blurred Bella's vision as she nodded. "Yes, yes, I will." Tuck slipped the ring onto her finger, then sealed the promise with a kiss that held all the certainty of their shared future. The announcement at breakfast was met with mixed reactions: Emma's immediate delight, Samuel's cautious acceptance, and Daniel's gruff, "About time you made an honest woman of her." But beneath his crusty exterior, Bella detected genuine approval. With no minister available until spring, they agreed to a wedding once the mountain passes cleared. The winter months that followed were filled with preparations and planning alongside the daily work of the ranch. Bella's relationship with the children deepened as they adjusted to her new role in the family, while Daniel gradually allowed himself to accept her permanent place in their lives. And Tuck was a constant source of joy as they navigated the transition from rescuer and rescued to equal partners. Their evenings often ended with quiet conversations on the porch or by the fire, sharing dreams for the ranch's future and their life together. "I want children," Bella admitted one night as they sat wrapped in blankets, watching stars emerge above the snowy valley. "Not just Emma and Samuel, though I love them dearly. Our own children, too." "I'd like that," Tuck replied, his arm tightening around her shoulders. "A house full of laughter again, Daniel's children and ours growing up together. Do you think he'll ever find happiness again?" Tuck considered the question carefully. "I don't know. Sarah was his whole world, but he's changing, Bella. I see it every day, the way he smiles more, engages with the children. That's your doing." "Not mine alone," she corrected. "This is a family healing together." Spring arrived with dramatic suddenness, as if the mountains had grown weary of winter's grip. Snow retreated up the valley slopes, revealing meadows where tender green shoots promised summer's abundance. The river swelled with meltwater, its voice a constant companion to the renewed activity on the ranch. With the first warming days came visitors, the circuit preacher making his rounds, neighbors from distant homesteads eager for news after the long isolation, traders bringing supplies and gossip from the settlements. Among these visitors was Judge Hollister, traveling with the preacher to handle legal matters too long delayed by winter's barriers. It was he who performed the simple ceremony that joined Bella and Tuck in marriage on a perfect May morning. They stood before the cabin, surrounded by flowering dogwood and the small gathering of friends and neighbors who had traveled for the occasion. Emma scattered wildflower petals along the improvised aisle, while Samuel solemnly carried the rings on a small pillow sewn by his sister. Daniel stood as Tuck's best man, his usual stoicism softened by genuine happiness for his brother. And Bella, wearing a dress of cream-colored muslin with her mother's lace collar, felt a circle completing from desperate flight to profound belonging. "I, Tucker James Zane, take you, Bella Marie Jameson, to be my lawfully wedded wife," Tuck recited, his voice steady and sure. "To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part." As Bella repeated the vows, she marveled at the journey that had brought her to this moment, a perilous path that began with men with cruel eyes cornering her in a forest clearing, and a stranger's voice declaring, "Next step you take toward her is your last." That stranger now placed a gold band on her finger, his eyes filled with a love that promised protection without possession, strength without domination, partnership without inequality. "By the authority vested in me," Judge Hollister proclaimed, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Tuck's kiss was gentle yet filled with promise, sealing their commitment before all witnesses. As they turned to face their small community, Bella knew with absolute certainty that she had found her place in the world not as someone's property or even someone's rescue, but as a woman fully herself, freely choosing to build a life alongside the man she loved. The celebration continued throughout the day and into evening, a feast prepared by neighboring women, music from a fiddler who had ridden 2 days to attend, dancing in the yard as lanterns cast golden light over the gathering. As twilight deepened, Bella found a quiet moment alone with her new husband, slipping away to the porch while the festivities continued. "Happy?" Tuck asked, his arm drawing her close against the evening chill. "Beyond words," she replied, resting her head against his shoulder. "A year ago, I couldn't have imagined this life." "Neither could I," he admitted. "I was just a restless man trying to find my way back to a place that didn't feel like home anymore. Then I found a woman being cornered by men with cruel eyes, and everything changed." "You saved me," Bella said softly. "No," Tuck corrected, turning to face her fully. "We saved each other." As his lips met hers beneath the vast canopy of stars, Bella knew it was true. Their story had begun with danger and desperation, but had transformed into something rare and precious, a love born of courage and kindness, tested by hardship, and now poised to flourish in the fertile valley they would cultivate together for years to come. The future stretched before them, rich with possibility, children to nurture, land to tend, a family to strengthen, and a love to deepen with each passing season. Whatever challenges might arise, they would face them together. Two souls who had found in each other not just safety or sanctuary, but true partnership and abiding joy. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate across the moonlit valley, a wild, plaintive sound that spoke of belonging and connection in this untamed land. Bella smiled against Tuck's lips, hearing in that call an echo of their own journey from solitude to union, from danger to deliverance, from strangers to beloved companions on life's unpredictable but wondrous path.